What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Nemo Propaganda here, and wouldn't you know it, Buchardt Audio has released a subwoofer. You guys know I've been a big fan of their speakers for a long time. I bought the original S400s back in the day. I later upgraded to the Mark II as soon as those were available. And now we have their subwoofer named the Sub10 in for review. I'm going to tell you about it. Let's get those main specs on screen so you guys can check that out. Now, one thing I want to tell you is I knew this was coming a long time ago, and the reason I'm mentioning that is because Buchardt Audio's website says that they've been R&Ding this for 2 years, and I want you guys to know they're telling you the truth, and I know that because I emailed Mads a few years ago and I said, hey, what's cooking? Are you working on anything new? And he said, don't tell anyone, but I'm working on a subwoofer. And I didn't tell anyone. I've kept my mouth shut this whole time for 2 years. The only reason I'm saying it now is because what I'm saying is, guys, when they say they've been R&Ding this for 2 years, they really mean it. And I respect that. It's not a rush job. They put a lot of effort and sweat into making this thing good. Let me tell you about those standout features because there's quite a few of them. First and foremost, let's talk about the size and shape. This is very unique. It's very niche. Buchardt Audio is a brand that cares about aesthetics. They want products that are beautiful and audio equipment that's not going to dominate the room visually. You know, think about their amplifier, small and sleek. Think about their speakers. They're beautiful. They're simple, clean, elegant styling. Their subwoofer's no different, only about 6 inches deep. So you can get this thing all the way against the back wall or side wall, or your rear wall, or under the couch even, I suppose. If you've got, you know, a high couch or behind the couch, you could do some crazy things. I tested this subwoofer in a ton of different configurations. It does have built-in room correction. It works very well, whether I had it jammed all the way against the wall or pushed out into the room or against the side wall. The room correction was always able to account for its location. There are also distance settings you can adjust manually. There's PEQ settings if that room correction is not enough for you for some reason. There's a ton of filters and different options you could use to dial it in, all from your cell phone. And here's the cool thing about the built-in room correction. You can buy a fancy microphone to use the built-in room correction, or you can just use the microphone in your iPhone if you have an iPhone, because it's very accurate, believe it or not. And I know this because I own a more expensive microphone, and I've measured my room with REW before. I know where my peaks are. I know where my nulls are. And when I measured my room using the Buchardt app and the Sub10's built-in room correction, it gave me the same results. My peaks were in the same place. My nulls were in the same place. And guys, I'm using an old iPhone. It's a 13 mini. I think that's about 4 generations old at this point, and it still produced accurate results and an accurate correction. Again, regardless of where I had the subwoofer placed in the room. So big shout out to that feature. That's great. In my opinion, if a subwoofer already has a DSP, I think this is a great feature to add. I wouldn't mind seeing this on more models, honestly. What else does it have? WiSA built-in wireless for, compatible with any other WiSA products like Buchardt's own, A500s with the Platin hub or whatever other hub they have. Master tunings. Yeah, it's got that too. So I had Buchardt provided me with some master tunings. These are not available to the public yet, so I'm not going to get into detail about them, but I'll just tell you what they do. So with the standard master tuning, I think the sub's perfect. It's set up for really, really deep bass and respectable output. Now, of course, a subwoofer this small is not designed for a 6, 7, 8,000 square cubic foot room, obviously, right? It's a 10-inch, it's compact, it's small. But for those of you that are willing to give up a little bit of your really deep bass extension and gain a lot more output, there is a master tuning for that. Or the opposite is also available. For those of you that are like, I don't listen loud at all, Matt, I want even more deep bass. There's a master tuning for that as well, which I think is crazy because the standard master tuning already has such deep bass and extension available. But I digress. Back to the shape, the driver being kind of high up in the cabinet, I found in my room did allow the sub to give a larger sense of scale than I usually get from a 10-inch. That was pretty cool. And again, it didn't seem to matter whether it was, next to my speakers, which are, about 3 feet off the main wall, or, pushed up all the way against the back wall or side wall, whatever. Again, that room correction pretty much accounted for everything, which made everything really easy. All I had to dial in was phase and gain. And let's talk about speakers real quick, because everyone's going to ask, how did it sound with the S400 or this or that? It didn't really matter which speakers I used, guys. The subwoofer seemed to be compatible to just about anything. So whether you've got a ATC SCM11, a KEF R3 Meta, Buchardt S400 Mark II, a Focal Aria 906, or Focal Evo X, I guess that one's called now, doesn't matter. The sub plays well with a lot of speakers, guys. So a lot of features, unique shape, very compact, lots of deep bass for how compact it is. What does it sound like? Because if it doesn't sound any good, none of those features really matter. So usually when you take a subwoofer and you DSP it to high hell, so it has a lot of really deep bass, you can sacrifice sound quality. That's not the case here. Buchardt actually got the sound quality to be pretty darn good. This is a small cabinet, so it's got a tight acoustic suspension, which means it's going to have good transient response. It's going to play tight with great start and stop behavior. And the standout sound quality feature I noticed was its note-to-note distinction, meaning the difference between, say, 30 hertz, 40 hertz, 50 hertz. The difference was clear. It was articulate. The subwoofer handles delicate passages fairly well. And again, that sense of scale, despite only being a 10-inch, was a little bit larger than I expected. And again, if I didn't already say it, that deep bass, what you get in terms of extension is very impressive. And I'll give you some examples of songs I used. The intro to Put On by Jeezy. That's a hip hop song that gets really low in that opening note. Another song, this is an EDM song called If You by Scrux. Throughout the whole song, there's just a lot of really low frequency sweeps. And your typical 10-inch driver is generally not going to show you all of that. It's going to miss a lot of that. Not the Sub10. The Sub10 is happy to show you all the really low frequency information in your favorite song. So I really enjoyed that. So I've told you about the features. I've told you what it sounds like. I've told you you can kind of place it anywhere in the room. I've told you how easy the cell phone app is to use in the built-in room correction, all that kind of good stuff. How does it compare to some other stuff? So let's get one thing out of the way, guys. This is all about extension in a compact form factor. If all you're hunting for is maximum output, yes, you can spend the same or even less money and go for something larger that will give you more output. So if you're a home theater only customer and just output is your number one priority, guys, we all know the RSL Speedwoofer 12S, it's substantially larger, but $800. Tremendous output. There's a lot of subs that can get plenty louder for the same money or less. That's not what the Sub10 is about. The Sub10 is about being elegant, beautiful, having that built-in room correction, those distance settings, that WISA built in, the low-level enhancements, all those PEQ and filter options. Elegant, compact, deep bass. That's what Buchardt was going for. Guys, if Buchardt was going for maximum output, they would have made this thing much larger. That wasn't the point. So with that out of the way, I'm not going to compare the Sub10 to subwoofers that are 4 and 5 times the size just because they're the same price. It doesn't make sense. Let's compare it to what it was really designed to compete against, in my opinion, the KEF KC62. That's another really compact sub that is known for its tremendous extension at reasonable volumes. It does cost a few $100s more money. What are some differences in features? Well, the Buchardt has the built-in room correction and cell phone app with all the features that come with it. The KC62 does not. So in my opinion, and I saw this when I reviewed the KC62, a lot of people were like, I wish it had room correction. I wish it had a cell phone app. It already has a DSP. It's expensive. Why doesn't it have those features? Here you go. The Sub10 fixes all of that. The KEF KC62 is a subwoofer I own. I love it. I'm not dogging it, but we all know it's not cheap. It's amazing for what it is, but we all kind of felt like for the money, it should have had a few more features. So I love to see that the Buchardt sub added all those features. So like the KEF KC62, the Buchardt Sub10 gets plenty low. Both subwoofers extensions, no problem, despite how small they both are. Both subwoofers can play reasonably loud, figure 85, 90 dB in a small room, no problem. If you're in a medium or larger room, and you want even more bass, you're probably going to want a pair of either sub. Both subwoofers have good note-to-note distinction. I feel the Buchardt Sub10 is a little bit clearer with its note-to-note distinction. Both subs have good start-stop behavior. I felt like the Buchardt played ever so slightly tighter. Both handled delicate passages fairly well. I felt the Buchardt Sub10 was ever so slightly better. And I can just keep doing this. What I'm essentially saying is any descriptor I want to use to describe sound quality, I felt the Buchardt Sub10 was just ever so slightly better than the KEF KC62. Not a huge difference. You know, they didn't put it to shame. The KEF KC62 is still a very good subwoofer. The Buchardt Sub10 sound quality was just ever so slightly better in just about every category. So with that comparison out of the way, that's going to end the comparison section. And I know, guys, I usually do 3 or 4 or sometimes even 5 comparisons when I review products, but this is a niche product. I already told you, it doesn't make sense to compare it to something larger and more traditional because that's not what this is about. The only real competitor this has is something like the KEF KC62 or honestly the SVS SB3000. That's another really, really compact subwoofer. A little bit different. You know, let's do that comparison. I feel like some people are going to ask. So this is actually a great comparison because despite both subs being very compact, they're very different. So Buchardt Sub10 versus SVS Micro 3000. Both are really small. The Buchardt Sub10 is about being small and having a ton of extension. The SVS Micro 3000 is about being small and having a lot of output. So the Buchardt Sub10 actually extends considerably lower and has a fuller bottom end than the SVS Micro 3000. Despite the Micro 3000 having double the power and dual 8-inch drivers, it is about output for being tiny, so that's what it does, not extension. It still extends low, don't get me wrong, just not as low as something like the Buchardt Sub10. The Micro 3000 is also going to crush details ever so slightly when compared to something like the Sub10. And it's a similar story, just like when we compared the Sub10 to the KC62. If I compare the Sub10 to the Micro 3000, any descriptor I want to use to describe sound quality, I do feel like the Sub10 is ever so slightly better. It's not a huge difference. The SVS Micro 3000 is a good subwoofer, but I do feel like the Sub10 just ever so slightly takes the edge. Both have cell phone apps in this comparison. Both have a ton of features in their cell phone apps. They just have different features. Again, with the Sub10, notably having that room correction, distance settings, and all that stuff. That's kind of unique at this price point. Honestly, it's unique for a subwoofer, period. Most subs don't have room correction. So, again, look, whether it's the Sub10, the SVS Micro 3000, or the KEF KC62, these are all really good small subwoofers. The KEF KC62 is the most expensive one, and for a long time I said it was the best one. It's still really good, but now I'm going to go ahead and say the Buchardt Sub10 is the best really small subwoofer. So if you've got space constraints, unique placement needs, and you can afford it, this is a great option. If you can't, if this is just too expensive, guys, the SVS Micro 3000 is still a fantastic subwoofer. Don't sleep on it just because I said the Sub10 is slightly better here or there, or because the Micro 3000 doesn't have room correction. It's still good. I want to say that thing's $899 US. This is $1,400 US. So you know that the price difference makes sense, right? So anywho, I've told you who the sub's for, who it's not for. Again, just to reiterate, the sub's for anyone that values good sound quality and really deep bass out of a small enclosure with a lot of features and a cell phone app. That's who it's for. Who is it not for? Anyone who is looking to recreate movie theater reference levels of bass. Guys, a small compact 10-inch sub is never going to do that. Even a pair isn't going to get you theater levels of bass. A 10-inch subwoofer is considered very small in terms of home theater, ladies and gentlemen. So I told you about all the placement. I told you about all the, the settings and features. I think that brings us to a close, guys. I think I've told you everything I wanted to tell you about the Buchardt Sub10. If you got any questions, ask in the comments section below. This YouTube channel does also have a free Discord server. Link is in the description of all my videos. And if I didn't already make it clear, yes, it paired well with Buchardt's own speakers. And yes, it paired well with a myriad of other speakers I used. So it doesn't really matter what speakers you have. You can use this bad boy if you like what I had to say about it. Until next time, take care.